Hi everybody! I am particularly excited tonight because first of all, it was my birthday last weekend and I had the most amazing night with my boyfriend, got an amazing present, amazing dinner, and then came home to watch Survivor, and finally it's a good episode, exciting, got me biting my nails and sitting on the edge of my seat. I do want to start by mentioning, I don't know if you guys heard, but there was a death in the French version of Survivor recently, where this 25-year-old guy had like multiple heart attacks on the first day, first challenge, and died. And apparently there was like a huge backlash in France, and even though former survivors there stood up and said, you know, the process is very rigorous, apparently it was too much pressure to handle for the doctor who like committed suicide, which is, I think, completely tragic. It's a waste of a life, and it's really sad because no one could fault the doctors on Survivor for doing that, and it's just terrible news and upsetting, I think, for Survivor fans everywhere. But moving on to better news, good episode. The merge is finally upon us. 12 people, that's a lot of people, and as we saw when Corinne got voted out, she's not a member of the jury, so not everyone in the merge will be on the jury. But yeah, pretty exciting. That immunity challenge, those are my absolute least favorite types of challenges. It's so hard to watch. I think that if I were ever in that challenge, like, I would forfeit. I would just, I would know that I couldn't win, therefore, like, why even bother putting myself through even trying to eat one worm, let alone that balut, and it was just, I can't even, like, I was watching, like, through my fingers. It was awful, but kudos to Corinne. I was so happy to see him win. That was unbelievable. He just, like, ate that at such a speed, and he was really, like, clearly in the zone. I was so happy he won, so happy, so bravo, Corinne. But yeah, then we're back at camp and we're looking at these two very distinct groups that are forming. We've got Malcolm, who has a lot of power with the two idols, really, and Eddie and Reynolds, who are in his back pocket, as well as Corinne. I think that their alliance, Malcolm and Corinne's alliance, was a pretty solid one, and Corinne had Michael. So that's 5 people, and then Eric was still kind of floating, and they even said it in the interviews, like it was never a sure thing. I don't think anybody knows what his strategy is because he really has none. So there's that group, and then we have what we've discovered is the core 4 in the Stealth RS Alliance, which are Philip, Andrea, Corinne, and Dawn. So that leaves us with Sherry and Brenda, which is an important thing to note because of what happens next. So obviously this is a great position for Malcolm in theory. It's a good plan, and he definitely has the power to take control of the game, but unfortunately it doesn't all rely solely on his shoulders. And Corinne was just too vocal. She let Philip get to him, and that is a huge mistake. I mean, I get that he's annoying as hell, and I get that, she is her own person and like snarky, whatever, strong character, but she was just too vocal, and it's what I was criticizing with the fans before when they did the swap. They were just too much information at one time, and she went overboard when she went to talk to Dawn. So my question is, I mean, I know that they clearly have like some kind of girl bond or tribe bond. We see them hanging around each other a lot, but why would she talk to Dawn when she could talk to Brenda? Like, Dawn is not at the bottom of that Stealth RS Alliance, and maybe Corinne thought that, but Dawn's actually sitting pretty in that like 4-person alliance at the top. I know 4 isn't a majority right now, but it's still like a strong position for her with strong players and all of them being fans. Whereas Brenda knows that she's not in Stealth RS. It was obvious. Brenda and Eric and Brandon were the only 3 that weren't in it. Brandon is no more, and Eric is like kind of on the flip or whatever, so and was already on her side anyway in theory, so she should have talked to Brenda. That would have been a much wiser move. And then Dawn like wanted to make a move because obviously she made a terrible decision when in her original season when she didn't do anything, because she didn't do anything, and B, she was on the wrong side of that flip. Whereas now, even though she's on the wrong side of the flip, like, she could have flipped with it and gone to the majority. I don't know if what Dawn did was right or wrong, but technically, seeing as she was in that tight 4-person alliance, and Sherry would have definitely done anything to stay, seeing as it was either Sherry or Corinne, so they had that vote secure, and they were right. I mean, Cochran was very brilliant in that analysis, and I think he deserves a Player of the Week, not only for killing it at that challenge, but for really, you know, thinking quickly and making some really good points in that episode. I think ultimately, sticking with Philip is what's going to get you far. And it's not just Philip. I think, you know, being able to survive with someone that you really can't stand, that thinks they have power, that thinks whatever they want, the circumstances can be really different. But in this case, Philip is like, if you can stick it out, I think you'll go farther in the game. And I think that's what we're going to see in this game. As for Malcolm making amends, it's going to be a hard game. I honestly think it's going to be an uphill battle for him. He's playing with people who are playing harder, and we'll have to see. I mean, he does have the idols, and he can use them to you know, in his favor. But who is he going to talk to? I mean, it looks like he's talking to Dawn, and I think that's a mistake. I think he needs to be talking to Brenda and Eric, because they were both at the bottom of that Stealth-Heiress alliance. And I mean, now he's lost Corinne, so that's also, you know, he would have to rally Sherry, and it's just, it's not looking good for Malcolm. I hate to say it. And as for Eric's, you know, strategy and what he'll do, I think unless somehow Eric and Brenda and Malcolm manage to band together and really create a strong alliance with the fans, I think it's pretty much over for Brenda and Eric, unfortunately, and really Malcolm too. I just don't really want to say it. So I guess I'm ready to make a prognosis on who my final 3 will be, my alternatives. So I think if we go with the Stealth-Heiress side, I see Philip, Cochran, and Andrea sitting in the final 3. And originally I thought Dawn, but I think if that is the final 3, Cochran will be behind all of that and masterminding that. And if Cochran brings Dawn with him in the final, people might vote for Dawn. Like, Dawn is a very likable person, whereas I don't think people would vote for Andrea over Cochran. So if Cochran is masterminding that, he would be better off bringing Andrea to the final 3, and then I think it would be Cochran's to win, like, not even to lose, like, he would win. And then the other option is if Malcolm does somehow pull it off, I see Malcolm, Reynolds, and Eddie in the final 3. And I say that because I don't think he would take Eric and Brenda, even if they do, like, stick with him and he was in their original tribe. We saw in Malcolm's last season that he was ready to stab Denise in the back, so I think he knows it would be his best bet to bring Eddie and Reynolds with him to the final 3, and I think that's what he would do. So those are, and then he would win, obviously. So that's my prognosis. I'm right now, I would give the game to Cochran if I had to place my bets, and I would be happy to give it to Cochran and to Malcolm too, because, you know, I'm a fan of Malcolm, but I think Cochran's got this, actually. He's clearly playing a strong game. So excited that for the week after my birthday, we've got a good episode of Survivor. I had a great night. I'm super excited to see what's gonna happen, and I look forward to hearing your comments. So hit me up in the comments, and check out my blog as well. Follow me on Twitter, talk to me. I will answer and love talking about Survivor. So, see you guys next week.